Good evening, Miss. My name is Ronke Olawale. I'm part of the Global Feminist program at the University of Michigan, and we have this program ongoing right now, which we are inviting you to participate in. It is the Global Feminism Project, a multi-site international project sponsored by the University of Michigan, and our goal is to archive oral histories of women to create and preserve conversations with women whose scholarship and or activism has contributed to women's activism. We're also thinking about women whose work generally have contributed in very critical ways to issues that are very important to women. I'm glad that you have accepted to talk with us. And I will start out by asking that you tell me your names and do me the favor of spelling them so that I don't misrepresent you, and briefly how you would like to be addressed.
Okay. So thank you so much. Excited to be a part of this project. I'll say that it is a very welcome initiative, and I looked forward to being a part of how far this will go. So my name is Olanike Olugboji. Olanike is O-L-A-N-I-K-E, and then Olugboji is O-L-U-G-B-O-J-I.
Okay. And how would you like to be addressed?
Miss.
Miss.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for accepting to participate. Let us just start out by delving a little bit into your background, and as you think about the place where you are today, how would you depict the journey that brought you to this point? That is, I'm looking at the central commitment in your life and how it all started and the road you've passed through thus far.
Okay, so your question takes me down memory lane, because I would say as far back as when I was maybe about 5, 6, 7 years old. Mm-hmm. Yes, I recall that I always felt bad when I see people throw things around. And then incidentally, I attended a military-like school, primary school. Even my nursery school, I went to Air Force nursery school before I went to an Army nursery school. For some reasons, I had to be moved from one school to another, and then I attended Command Children's School, which is a military school. And finding myself in that kind of space also brought to bear, that connection I had with the environment, because there we were taught to pick, when we see anything that is like a litter anywhere on the school ground, that we were taught to pick and take. And I always loved it, because it was like I'm taking care of the environment I love. And then one other thing I can remember as a child, each time we had to travel, either by road or train, I'll just observe. I didn't know what was rural, I didn't know what was urban, and of course I probably wasn't knowledgeable enough to ask those questions, but just within me all those things play on my mind. I'll see maybe women, children carrying, water over long distances. I grew up in Kaduna State, within the metropolitan area. And what I was used to is, just turning up the tap and getting water. But now seeing this other side of life, left some images in my mind, which I didn't even realize as a child would come back someday. And I have a background in urban and regional planning, first and second degree. And I would say to an extent, my interest in the environment also influenced, you know, where my field of study. And then upon graduation, I worked for some time, but deep within me, I always knew that I was going to follow my passion someday, which is taking care of the environment, caring for the environment. And so after, I think in 2003, after I left a job, I resigned. It's like my childhood dream of, you know, really doing something proactive to take care of the environment started coming back again. Those images started showing up. All the things I did as a child, you know, doing my beat, sweeping, picking litters within the school premises, you know, started adding up. And then I thought to myself, I said, I think it's time, you know, that I follow my passion, my dream of doing something that would help the environment. So in 2003 up until 2004, I started trying to find organizations who were already doing something. Apparently, I'd even formed an organization that was not registered. And the name I came up with back then was Environmental Management and Protection Network. And the idea I had then was to look for organizations who were already doing something, you know, to protect our environment or help manage our resources well. And I didn't find any. The only I heard about then was a women's environmental program. And I started trying to track, you know, whoever the founder was, and I learned she had left Kaduna State. And so I just felt, okay, I think I should just keep doing the bits I could do. And back then I was trying to address every environmental problem, you know, the issue of water, waste management, land rights for women, a lot of other things I'd become aware of. But one thing that struck me from that 2004 to 2008 was that most of the issues that I was trying to address would always take me back to women in the community. So I became more conscious of how a lot of the environmental challenges we have in our communities affect the lives of women. A lot of them, their lives are tied to natural resources. Yet I found out that they had no say, they had no control over some of these things. And I would say that between 2004 and 2005, I was fortunate to have been interviewed by New Nigerian newspaper. And then I was asked a question about Matai Wangari, if I knew Matai Wangari. And back then I didn't even know anything about her. And then the journalist told me, said, you may be the next Matai Wangari. I said, I don't even know this person. So I started researching about Matai Wangari, and I found out, you know, she became like an inspiration for me. Somebody who understood what I was, you know, working towards. Somebody who had, you know, insight into what I would love to see happen in the environment. And so I started reading about her, researching about her work. And then in 2005, I was sent an invitation to apply for a strategic meeting that was being championed by the now rested Women's Global Green Action Network. They found 32 women across the world who were doing maybe things to help the environment, and I happened to be one of them. But I wasn't able to make it to that meeting in Mexico, but I stayed in touch with the people, the brains behind it. And I'll want to talk about some of the experiences I had in my community as I journeyed on. You know, because I didn't have the resources to do much of what I was trying to do, I tried to identify organizations I could pay courtesy call to and, you know, tell them what I was doing. And the then Ministry of Environment in the state where I'm based. I sent them a letter. I was invited, and I was so excited that one of the key people, I don't want to mention the person's position for some reasons, one of the key people there, it was more like a challenge. And what struck me was that it was coming from a woman, and she said, "Do you want to take over our jobs?" And I was like, "No, I'm only trying to compliment your efforts." I thought as a woman, she should celebrate what I was up to, what I represented, and see how she could support what I was doing. So that kind of, shook me a bit, and I had to withdraw. That was, I think, around 2006. So in 2007, like I said, I'd stayed in touch with the brains behind the strategic meeting that was supposed to happen in Mexico. So I got a letter, telling me that there was Walpole's, an organization that, gives women a platform, to be heard, and then also creates visibility for them and their work. So since in my community, I didn't feel I got the kind of reception, that I thought would help me or propel my work, I started expressing myself through my writings, sharing my experiences, what I was finding in my community and all that. And then a woman from somewhere that I don't know, because it's more like a social networking platform, but the vision of the founder is to create visibility for women and also get them heard. So I started feeling heard, and this time around coming from women too, so it was a different feeling from what I had experienced in my community, which was almost going to discourage me. So I started spending more time writing about my experiences, what women were facing when it comes to having access to land, when it comes to taking decisions, when it comes to water supply, water management, when it comes to access to cooking energy, because some of these women, I'll tell you that, especially in Africa and Nigeria, where I'm from, women till the land day in, day out, and they don't own those lands. Because of traditional practices, laws, norms, and all that deny them those rights. And when you talk about agriculture, I would say that they are the ones, feeding my nation in particular, but yet they can't lay claim to those lands. And then when you look at even access to cooking energy, most families across the world, I think it's estimated that maybe about, I don't want to give wrong statistics, but I know that not less than maybe 1 billion of the world's population still relies on traditional means of cooking, using biomass, on sustainable means, inefficient means. And looking at a lot of these women and speaking about those images of those women, I said keeps coming back to me. You find out some of them will trek. I've met women who would tell me that they trek 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers to go and fetch firewood. Oh. Same thing for water. Some go that far to fetch water from sources that are contaminated. But the sad reality is that across all these communities that I go to and I meet these women, you find that they don't have a say in terms of, taking decisions about, if interventions are being brought by their community, whether by the government, whether by the traditional body in their community, their voices are always missing. Oh. So I kept sharing all these stories about these women. And so in 2014, there was, from 2013, I had applied in 2011 because Walpole's has something they call Voice of Our Future. The name has been changed now.
Okay.
So there was a call for applications for a 6-month citizen journalism and digital empowerment training, and then I put up some writings, but then I was doing a master's program, and combining all these things, I really couldn't meet up. I just did my bits and I didn't make it among the 30 finalists. But one of the, I remember his name, Scott Beck. He's no longer with Walpole's, but he reached out to me. He said, I love your writings. I love what you're doing. Can you reapply for, you know, the next Voice of Our Future? You have something you're saying. So when he said that, you know, it helped me look inwards again and say, no, I know I can do this. There's a reason why I couldn't meet up. Why were those other 30 women selected? And I'll tell you that there's a lot, you know, that can shift and happen for women when we support ourselves, when we work together, when we are not in competition with each other. What I did was I went back and I started studying the writings of those 30 women. And I was like, what was it about them that was missing from my writings? And I tell you that I learned a lot, you know, from reading what they were writing, even though it had nothing to do with environment. But I learned so much from it. And then I reapplied in 2013. And then I became one of the 30 that was selected. And then 3 among the 30 were supposed to go on something that is called Walpole's Live Speaking Tour. And then out of the 6 semi-finalists, I became one of the 3. And that earned me an opportunity to, I think I had about 16 speaking engagements across the United States. Wow. And you know, that was a wow experience for me. And I'm like, yes, you know, I'm getting there. What I'm doing is important. The stories of these women needs to be heard, because I remember one of the questions I was asked during the interview. I didn't even know that a decision had been taken. I'd made it, but they sent me an email and said, we have one other question for you. And I was like wondering, what is it? I almost had sleepless nights, you know, trying to prepare myself for it. And one thing I missed saying again was that during the 6-month citizen journalism and digital empowerment training, we had a vision mentor. For each one of us, we had a vision mentor and an editorial mentor assigned to us. Okay. You know, so I would eventually, as I speak on, talk about mentoring. That is also important, you know, for bringing about transformation, change, fast transformation in the lives of women. Because if you have gone through a process that took you maybe 10, 20 years, you know, before you could achieve your dream, you could help another woman, you know, achieve it faster. And, you know, when we're talking about helping each other, we're making the world better for ourselves, better for our families, better for our communities, and better for the whole world. So, you know, when this happened, one of the things I remember I said to the interview panel when they asked me, what is it you would like the US audience, you know, to hear, you know, about your work and your community? I went back to my vision mentor. I'd answered the questions they sent to me, and she was like, Olanike, this is, I love everything you've written. But do you know one thing I want you to do? Just be all that you have said. And so I dropped all those notes. And when they called me, it was like, I don't know what to call that moment. The moment I said something about, I want the audience, every audience that I'm going to come across, to know about that woman who is at the backside of nowhere. Probably her community is not even, you cannot find it on a map, but that woman exists. And she doesn't even have a clean glass of water. She doesn't even know what a clean glass of water is. So I want everyone you know, seated in the audience wherever I go, to know about such a woman exists. And I think for me, I think that was one of the things that also probably stood me out, you know, because a lot of these women don't have a voice. They are not visible. So some of us can be their voices, and not just be their voices. We must be available to also help them get to that point where we have been. And so that has been the approach, you know, of my work. It's not something that I'll say I had all the way, but I was able to pick this up because of the kind of support I got from you know, the contact I had made with the Women's Global Green Action Network, which is now Women's Earth Alliance, because one of the founders then moved on to found Women's Earth Alliance, and today they are one of my key partners. And one of the things that has also done for me, because when I started this work, I wasn't even seeing it as something that could ever pay me, something I could earn anything from. I was just following my heart. And I'll tell you that for 11 years, I self-funded the work. The first ever funding I got, you know, came through a recommendation by Women's Earth Alliance to Global Green Grants Fund. You know, and we got $5,000, you know, to help expand our women's waste recycling project. So to date, we've done a lot of work with women across communities in Nigeria on waste recycling, digital empowerment training. Because of my experience with World Pulse, I've won a lot of awards, you know, on World Pulse, and then gained other recognitions, you know, for my work. And one exciting thing that also happened for me during the World Pulse live speaking tour was the opportunity to speak at the Clinton Global Initiative, where the co-founder of the Empowerment Institute found me. And so she offered me a scholarship to attend the Empowerment Institute. And my experience with the Empowerment Institute has been transformational, because in the midst of, because I'm so passionate about my work, one of the things I didn't realize was that I wasn't even paying attention to myself. I was driving myself to more like breaking points. I wasn't allowing myself drive the work, but rather the work was driving me. So I was always like overstretched, you know, trying to be everywhere, and that wasn't healthy. But because I was not even aware. And so in 2016, I had the opportunity to go for my first in-class training at the Empowerment Institute. But prior to that, in I think sometime in 2015, around October, November, I was to attend an in-country training by the first Nigerian who I think got a scholarship to attend the Empowerment Institute. And when I got to that training, you know, and as she kept talking about agency empowerment and looking at my own life, I knew where I was at was where I wasn't feeling too healthy. You know, I felt I could drop dead at any moment because I was really tired, overstretched. And when she kept talking about the 7 key areas of life that the empowerment model looks at, I realized there's the issue of emotion, relationship, sorry, let me go over it again. Emotion, relationship, money, work, body, spirituality, and sexuality. So as she kept talking about the 7 areas of life, I just realized that I wasn't paying attention to body. And I felt that if only I could have a vision in that area, I think maybe other things will fall in place, because that was the point where I was at. And I'm telling you that that was a good decision for me to go ahead with the empowerment experience, because that has been a game changer also for me, for my work. because a lot of things that I used to struggle with in terms of maybe my delegation skills, I always wanted to do everything. I had, you know, people around me who could help, but I grew up in a family where I was taught never to ask people for anything. Don't expect anything from anybody. So I guess that was one of the reasons why I self-funded my work for 11 years. You know, because I couldn't, but all that has changed, you know, helping me move from a place of pathology to vision, which those are some of the terms we use at the Empowerment Institute.
Yeah, so I guess the other question I wanted to ask is that, you know, over the years, therefore, how has your career changed?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier that I studied urban and regional planning, first and second degree. For all the time after, I think I graduated in 1998. I served in 1999. I returned to the state where I grew up, which is where I still reside, and started looking out for employment. Eventually I had to, because I just didn't want to stay at home, I had to take on a job with an environmental consulting firm. I wasn't on salary, but I was just glad about the opportunity to be able to leave home, go somewhere and learn. So I was there for, I think, almost a year, when my dad spoke to one of his friends who has a, I think it's acclaimed that it's the first private TV station in Nigeria. And so Halifa Baba Ahmed, he's now late, may his soul rest in peace. He is one of the foremost media personalities in Nigeria, up until the time he passed on. And so my dad had spoken to him, and then he offered me a job as his special assistant, and also promised to help me find a job that suits, you know, my academic background. And we were looking at the Federal Capital Development Authority. But, you know, after working with him for about a month, he got used to me. He felt, you know, I was going even beyond his expectations. So he decided to offer me a full-time job and asked me to go to the Nigerian Television Authority to find out how much their graduates are being paid. And then he placed me on that salary. And then I was his special assistant. And then while working with him, I was able to develop their brochure for more like a book that contains everything about the different positions available, job schedules and things like that. So that was a new learning for me. And then most of the time he would ask me to write his letters, whether to the governor and things like that. Initially, maybe after writing the letter, sometimes I'm, you know, like wondering in my mind, why is he giving me this kind of task to do? Why can't he just write the letter and I give it to his secretary? But one thing I found out was that as I kept, maybe he would just dictate to me, and as I kept writing, sometimes he would just change a few words. Initially, maybe more words, but eventually it was reducing. And then one day he gave me 1,000,000% when he asked me to write to the then governor. I just knew I'd picked something from him in terms of maybe letter writing skill. And then after I left there, of course that worked for me. When I left there, I got a job with a legal firm as the personal assistant to the principal partner. But for some reasons I had to leave. Since I'm not I actually faced sexual harassment, and I had to just resign. And that was in 2003. You know, so now imagine leaving 2 jobs consecutively. I just told myself, I said, there's something I've always wanted to do, fix the environment. If that was my childhood mentality. So I said, I think it's time to go back. So I started asking questions from my friends who know someone who is already running maybe a non-governmental organization or non-profit organization. And then I had this friend who had introduced to the media house where I was working. He later became the anchor for the sports program. You know, so through him, I was able to find someone who was running a youth organization, and then he started guiding me. And that was when I came about the Environmental Management and Protection Network name. We sat down together. So some of the experiences that I had gathered while working with Halifa, in fact, when I got to that legal firm, I was adjudged the best staff after 1 week. And within me, I knew that the credits should go to, you know, my previous boss. And everything I'd learned, you know, in terms of time, report writing, supervision, and all that helped me when I started my organization, because I didn't have the resources to employ anyone. You know, so I could be the founder, the program director, the program coordinator, the program officer. I was everything. And the funder, I was the funder too. And eventually I had some friends who would go along with me for courtesy visits, and it wasn't such a smooth experience, you know, particularly because funds that I didn't have any reasonable savings, and then funds that I made from the environmental consulting firm. I said I left because I wasn't being paid. So when I had a job that would at least give me a stipend, I opted for it before I was placed on full salary. But I was still consulting for that environmental firm, so I get some money from them. So when I left my job, you know, I was still able to get by. And then because I knew I wanted to reach out to some of these women in communities, I'll just use some of my funds, you know, go to communities, identify certain issues around maybe, you know, how can we, I remember when we were doing something about waste plastic recycling with women. You know, how can we get rid of some of this waste as women? What can we make with, you know, some of this polythene waste littering the whole place and all that? So one of the things I found out about most of these women when I go to their communities and bring them together was that they didn't have financial wherewithal. And then because I didn't want these women to just feel used and dumped, you know, I started thinking of how to support them, you know, no matter how little the resources is. And so I launched a microcredit scheme. We started with 5,000 naira, which is just, how much is 5,000 naira now?
It should be less than $20.
About $10 or $15.
Yeah.
Yes. So that was the best we could give to some of these women, you know, to say, okay, we're giving you this as a loan. But today we're at a point where we're able to give up to 200,000 naira.
Wow.
Which is how much? Up to $300, you know, depending on, but so much has changed about my work because funding was a big issue. I remember at a time my elder sister, I can imagine if she gets hold of this interview, she will interview me, because at some point she got worried for me and she would be like, do you know what you're doing? You keep saying you're empowering women all over the place and all that, and you come to us, you are asking for, you know, money to get by and all that. Why don't you just go and get a job? And you can imagine when I've sacrificed, after I left my last job, 2003, I launched out in 2004. So I'd sacrificed, maybe my sister was telling me this almost like 10 years later. And I was looking back. I said, I hope I haven't actually made a mistake. But thank God for my dad. He's late now. He passed on in 2015. He said, don't stop. You know, just stay at what you're doing. Just stay at what you're doing. And I would say that he's a pillar of my work. And I see him as that. And there's also a role that, of course, men can play in helping women find whether their career path or the path of whatever dream, you know, they want to pursue. So this is just, I may have missed out a lot in between, but I think this is just the transition that has happened for me as somebody who studied urban and regional planning and just practiced for, you know, very minimal number of years, probably just about 2 years. And then, you know, here I'm a social, I don't want to use activist. I always use advocate. So I describe myself as an environmental and women's empowerment advocate. So that's where I am now. And also I've become an entrepreneur. I'm exploring, because one of the focus of WISE, Women Initiative for Sustainable Environment, I came up with that name in 2008 after being selected to attend the Women's Global Women Leaders for the World training, leadership training at Santa Clara University. You know, because from 2004 to 2008, I was trying to do everything environment, but I said it always took me to the women in the communities. So I couldn't really align the environment and, you know, women. How do I really, you know, merge this together and be able to run with it? So after I went to the Women Leaders for the World training, it's now called How Women Lead. You know, so that's why I think I'm struggling with those titles. By the time I came back, you know, I had kind of become more informed, knowledgeable about how I could strategize to achieve what I wanted. And I knew the first place to start would be, you know, to have a name that is representative of the cause I was set to champion. So that was how we came up with the name Women Initiative for Sustainable Environment. It was legally registered in 2009.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wonderful. But in all of this, would you say that you have experienced any personal changes as a result of your engagement in the kind of work you do?
Yes. Because when I tell people that I'm a shy person, they don't believe. I'm somebody that is pretty conservative. You know, when I get into a space, I just want to be quiet. I don't want to be identified. But one of the things that my work has made happen for me is giving me a kind of visibility that, you know, and then even the name WISE, there are places that name has gone to that I'm not even aware of. And then, you know, when somebody sees me and maybe I get introduced and they realize there's a connection between me and WISE, you know, they're like, oh, we've heard so much about you. And I'm like wondering, just, you know, the way I think your projects probably found me. So more visibility and then voice, a powerful voice.
Thank you. Yeah, next, on reflecting upon your work, how do you understand the term feminism?
I actually came into Abuja for a meeting. It's something that is about to be launched, a partnership between Equal Access. Equal Access is also an American organization, and then Empowerment Institute US. And so I don't want to talk too much about the initiative that we're launching, but that word feminism came up while we were having our discussions, because this is a kind of intervention that will be going into communities. Okay. And then I started explaining to them, you know, the approach to, you know, the cause I'm advancing. Because you go to communities and then, you know, sometimes men are very uncomfortable when they hear you say something about women's empowerment or gender equality. Mm-hmm. But way back, even on my experience during the Walpole's live speaking tour, I got asked that question in the United States, that how are you able, you know, to communicate with men in communities or to get them to accept what you're doing. And one of the things that I think we need to deconstruct, which I know that I've you know, has helped me work with men and also opened up other communities to us, or made our work acceptable in the communities that we're reaching, is that we define feminism as a call to partnership between men and women. Okay. It's not a contest. Okay. It's not a competition. And I tell the women that we're working with that if you as a woman, you feel, okay, this space, you know, it's been your space all these years and all that, and then somebody just comes and says, you know, move, I want to take part of the space. Mm-hmm. How would you feel? As against somebody coming to say, oh, you've been occupying this space. You know, I think there is room for one more person or more. We can share this space and so much can work better. You know, so the feminism thing, I see it as, you know, an opportunity for women to contribute to development, contribute to societal change. It's not, you know, a fight, or it's not an attack on men.
Okay.
I'm actually engaged. I'm in a relationship, and one of the things I know that my partner has accepted, which is, you know, helping us move forward, is because he understands and appreciates what I'm doing. He doesn't see it as a threat. And I think that if we as women are able to spread, you know, the feminism message in a manner that is not offensive to people, in a manner that people are able to understand that this is an opportunity for everybody, male, female, you know, to contribute to a better world, I think we'll win more men over. Because I've worked in different parts of, I grew up in northern Nigeria, you know, and I think I would say that northern Nigeria is more conservative than the southwest. Yeah. But we don't have, people are not repulsed by our work. Because you can imagine when a man knows that when you are telling his wife that adopt an improved cook stove instead of using the traditional fire, and the man knows that this new improved cook stove we're bringing to his wife is going to free up her time. She's going to have more time for him, have more time for the children, have more time for herself. The money that he's giving her, you know, that she's burning in inefficient means of cooking, or more expensive cooking fuel like kerosene, is now going to add to the family savings. I'm not sure that any man would. And in the process, when you are asking or supporting those women to make these changes. They are becoming more empowered. And when there's value addition, you know, to herself, to the husband, to the brother, to, you know, the male gender, I'm not sure that the concept of feminism will be misunderstood or challenged.
Okay. Yeah, I really would like you to, at this point, talk about your work. And for that, can you tell me what the improved clean stove is? And then we'll go into the larger question of that interconnection between feminism and global climate change.
Okay. In fact, I think I love this question so much because the projects that we've been working on for the past 4 years is centered on access to cooking energy for women. So in 2014, I came across a World Health Organization publication, more like a research that they did and put out the report. So I saw in that report that 98,000 Nigerian women were dying annually from smoke-related illnesses. And then in addition to that, they also estimated that any woman who cooks breakfast, lunch, and supper using firewood is considered to have smoked 24 packets of cigarettes in a day.
Wow.
And then that Nigeria tops the lists of countries where women were dying from smoke-related illnesses. 3 astonishing and alarming, you know, statistics. And so I thought to myself, I said, could this be real? Okay, and I now decided to do like a mini research, you know, in Kaduna State. And I was thinking of going to high density communities because I felt, okay, maybe those who use firewood, you know, they are the poor people or people at the bottom of the pyramid. And then somebody came to make my hair at home one day, and I was talking to her, sharing, you know, my thoughts with her, and she said, no, you don't have to go that far. This estate where we're living, I know a particular portion where people are living as if they're in the rural area. It's a kind of government owned area within the estate. Okay. They are government properties. And then I got there and I could see goats, whatever, stacks of firewood. I saw the means of cooking and all that. I said, okay, these are probably part of the number of people that, you know, the World Health Organization is pointing to. But I now thought again, I said, what about those people who don't have access to even the list of primary health care? You know, they probably will be missing out in the number that is put out there. So I started doing my projections and I started going from, you know, communities to communities. And I found out that the use of traditional mode of cooking, that's the tripod or the 3-stone fireplace, is even used in some up the ladder homes, not because they are poor, but people give different reasons why they use this food. And when you go to a lot of schools, boarding schools, especially public boarding schools, yes, even private, I've gone to private secondary schools or boarding schools, you find out that a lot of them are still using the traditional means of cooking. And then you see a lot of these women are exposed to so much fumes and they are ignorant of the health implication. So we're not just talking about the environmental implication, there's the health implication, there's the financial implication on the family, because a lot of them don't even know that it's more expensive than using cleaner options like gas. And then some of them will still tell you they are afraid of gas and all that. So a lot of these findings, you know, I put it together and I published it in, on my Walpole's journal. So the current board chair of Walpole's found that article and she said to me, Olanike, how can I help? You know, I see that you're trying to find solutions to this. As soon as you find any solution, I'm willing to invest $500 to support you. So I started searching online, and then I found the Global Alliance for Clean Cookstoves, which is now the Clean Cooking Alliance. Okay. And then I joined that group online. And eventually they sent my information. I didn't even know there was a Nigerian Alliance for Clean Cookstoves. So they sent my details to the Nigerian Alliance for Clean Cookstoves. And then I got invited for one of their partner meetings. And so that was how I registered and started attending. I started meeting stove producers. That was how I learned about improved cook stoves, or you may want to call it clean cook stoves. And so during one of the meetings I attended, I found this young lady who had launched a cook stove manufacturing or production business. And then I started talking to her. Of course, there were men there, but I have nothing against men, you know, because we engage them. Our approach to work is gender sensitive. Yeah. And we found out that, you know, we can't leave the men behind when you're talking to the women and empowering these women. We must gain the support of the men, you know, so that they don't have problem. Yeah. So I found out that the Nigerian Alliance for Clean Cook Stove space was dominated by men. But I was just joining, and I didn't want anyone to, you know, blacklist me or something. So I started thinking, I said, why would men be taking decision? They don't do the cooking. And then most of them who are designing stoves, they don't do the cooking. Are they really in communication with women who need the stoves? Mm-hmm. So I picked more interest in the lady, Happy Amos, and I started talking to her. I asked her to show me a sample of her stove and all that. So when I got that $500, I bought 50 stoves, because the exchange rate then was, I think, 200 naira to $1. Okay. So I had about 100,000, and each of her stoves cost 2,500 back then. So I bought 50 of the stoves, about 100,000 naira worth. Then I started going back to all those women that I had identified who were still using firewood. I remember one of them, I can't remember her name now, but that story I said I published in my online journal was picked up by Time magazine, you know, and published in Time magazine. So that was also exciting and motivating for me, that I think, you know, I can really do something on the platform of WISE, you know, to bring about a difference in the lives of women, to change the game for women. So we gave out those stoves. But then Happy came back and told me, she named her stove after herself. She called her stove Happy. So she came back and told me, and she said, oh, please, I know you're doing well supporting me, buying my stoves, you know, but if you keep giving out the stoves to people across communities, then some people will never buy my stove. They will wait until you are able to come and gift them a stove. So I said, okay, we'll change our strategy. So we started giving out the stoves at flexible payment rates, or people who can pay, make the down payments, but at no single profit to us. We started selling at the cost price, you know, just to make it accessible to women. And then we gave out some during the World Earth Day of that year. We went to a community, sensitized them about the health implication of the traditional means of cooking, and then the benefits of the clean or improved cook stoves over, you know, other unclean sources, you know, dirty sources. So I sent an update back to the person who had gifted me $500, and then she gave me another $1,000.
Wow.
So we're able to buy 1,000 stoves. And then I think I gifted about 50 of those stoves to women in an IDP camp where I'd gone to deliver agency empowerment, you know, to them. And then Women's Earth Alliance, our long-term partner, now reached out to me to say in 2015 that they wanted to come and do a water sanitation and hygiene project in Nigeria. I said, wow, I know that is equally important in the lives of women, but this is what we're currently working on is an area where not too many people are even aware that women were actually dying, you know, as a result of having to perform their traditional role of cooking for their families.
Yeah.
And so they picked interest and started talking to me back and forth, and that was how we launched a $50,000 worth of project.
Wow.
Which helped us identify 30 grassroots women leaders across communities in Kaduna State, our base, where we were able to bring these women together for 2 weeks of residential training. And you know, we developed a curriculum that would support the developing their enterprise skills, leadership skills. And under leadership, we had agency empowerment and multimedia storytelling, because digital empowerment was key to helping me find, you know, my voice and also visibility. So that's also incorporated into our curriculum. And we wanted these women to be able to capture the stories of the experiences of women in their community when it comes to how they access cooking energy, because we've heard women get raped when they go into the forest to search for firewood. Some get snake bites, some get scorpion bites, some are just assaulted by whoever, you know, they find. Maybe they go to somebody's farm and the person comes and assaults them, and you know, things like that. And then some of them using all these dirty forms like the traditional means, they have to scrub soot off their pots, you know, spending productive hours that they could use for. So we wanted all those stories captured by these women that we were sending back into their communities, and we didn't impose anything on them. The first week of training, we asked them to go back to their communities in the light of the information that they have gotten about improved cook stoves. How will this help their communities? What kind of stoves will women in their communities accept? What kinds of fuels do they have that are accessible, you know, that will reduce the time they have to go into the forest, you know, to search for firewood, or the costs that they have to, you know, spend, the cost implication of. So we did a kind of questionnaire that they took back and brought back all that information to us. As I speak to you today, one of those 30 women has become a cook stove producer. And they go by the name Cook Stove Entrepreneurs and Advocates. We have our anthem. And then today, as I speak to you, we have trained about 276 clean cook stove entrepreneurs and advocates. Because after that training in 2017, we did a lot around advocacy in 2018. And then, we did a lot, early 2018. So later part of 2018, when the Energy Commission of Nigeria, with the support of UNDP and Global Environment Facility, launched an intervention tagged Sustainable Firewood Management Project. You know, they heard about our model and then invited us. So last year, on the platform of UNDP Sustainable Firewood Management Project, we trained another 20 entrepreneurs, then brought 10 from the first set of 30 entrepreneurs to become mentors. You know, that's why I said I'll come back to mentoring, because when you have had an experience and you're able to guide another woman, you know, it will help her also move faster. or she has somebody she can look up to, you know, anytime she needs counsel, support, or whatever assistance. So we did that training in Kaduna, but for the one we implemented last year in Delta and Cross River states, because under the project they had 3 pilot states. So we also had to do the training, but in Delta it was a different approach, because they insisted it has to be a gender sensitive training, where we have both men and women, you know, coming to work together. How can the men support the women? Because you have cases where a woman has gone to fetch firewood, she's almost dying, she comes home, she starts cooking, the baby is crying, probably the husband is just playing, watching TV or playing games, whereas this woman is overstretched. So we've also been able to bring on the voices of the men, and they're now telling us, or they were, some of them were not even aware. Because sometimes you'll be amazed that because we as women, we don't even know what we want. So we don't even ask for that kind of help. Then you think the man is also wicked. The man may not even be aware, you know. But if now the man is aware, how can we get the man to help or support these women without feeling that his male ego, you know, has been eroded or corroded? You know, so these are some of the things we're teaching these people. And then we had about 54 participants, a balance of men and women in Delta last year. And then in Calabar, we had 40, a balance of men and women, 20 men and 20 women thereabouts, including the clan head in that community being a participant, you know, to get his buy-in. And then his wife too was also represented. So our approach is also identifying people who can influence others. And so the national coordinator was very impressed with what we did. And then this year we secured the contract, you know, to train 120 new clean cook stove entrepreneurs across the 3 states. Again. And so that's how we've arrived at that number of 276. And then another organization has also heard about what we're doing. And then we have a project that will be launching in Gombe state, which is one of the states that is affected by the insurgency, you know, that Nigeria has witnessed for a couple of years now. And we're looking at how we could use this intervention to support women and men, you know, who have been affected by the conflicts and, you know, all the violence that has happened around there, to see how we could also empower some women and women to become entrepreneurs and advocates there who will spread the word, you know, to make the change happen very fast, that in this age and time, no woman should have to die from cooking for her family.
Great job there you're doing. And I was just going to ask these other questions. What would be some of your other expectations from your organization in terms of the work that you do?
We scaling up our work, because we found out that our work is having very tangible impacts on the lives of communities that we're serving. So we need to find more partners, you know, to be able to scale our work. And then also one of our long-term vision, which I have shared with a couple of our partners, and which needs to also happen for the organization real fast. Because right now, some of the support we're getting is not, yes, we have partnership projects that are funded by some of these partners, but is not yet kind of positioning us to be self-sustaining. You know, so we are looking at getting to that place where even if we're not getting donor funds, we should be able to survive, because our work is very key, very strategic. You know, in the face of climate change now, a lot of women's livelihoods are threatened, is threatened. And not just livelihoods, you know, other things that, you know, humanity relies on for survival. Because now you can't predict the rains. And then you can see that it's even resulting in conflict. You have farmer headers clashes and things like that. And a lot of women are caught in the web. You know, so all these issues has to be addressed in a manner that, you know, helps us protect our environment and helps humanity live up to that goal of, you know, sustaining the environment. So we cannot, and then one of the, you hear that from the mission that I shared with you, what we're looking at is positioning women as solutions, not victims, you know, authors of their own change, you know, people who will rewrite the stories for other women. So that, you know, we don't have a kind of situation. Yes, we're talking about sustainable development, which is just all about the current generation meeting their needs and also making sure that the ability of those coming after us, you know, to meet their own needs is not compromised. So women need to become more informed, you know, equipped, their capacities need to be built. You know, they need to be equipped well enough to be able to stand for themselves, stand for their families, stand for their communities. And we will continue to position ourselves as an organization and align with, you know, others, whether individuals or corporate organizations, bilateral organizations, you know, anybody that is committed to seeing women, you know, advance and, you know, will not feel any or let me not say the other side, let me just say will know that, you know, justice is being served to everyone. Yeah,
thank you. For you, I know you talked a lot about your work, research, and writings. What do you consider to be the relationship between scholarship and activism in terms of feminist scholarship and feminist activism? What is that relationship in your work, for instance?
I'm trying to figure out if I should just say that there is a very thin line between both. They're and I would say that they're interconnected because I have a part of me, you know, that represents that scholarship or that has passed through that scholarship. And then there's that part of me, you know, that is an advocate or call it an activist, you know, so it's kind of interrelated. It supports each other. There's a kind of support. You can't separate them because you can't give what you don't have. So there's that part that I'll say the scholarship parts can also prepare you, equip you, you know, to do what you have to do and do it well. And then the activism is, you know, you taking on all that the scholarship has equipped you with, you know, to actually take action and make impact.
All right. Yeah, sounds good. Then for you personally, what is the intersection of your work with the women's movement, as it were, in Nigeria and then maybe globally? Okay,
so we have a face that we call that's women and environment. And in all that we do, the 4 cardinal thing that we look at in our work is leadership development, agency, economic empowerment, and peer support. So all these are very key, you know, in the feminism movement, and where we also come in terms of addressing environmental issues that have direct bearings on the lives of women, and position them, you know, to be at the front lines of leading the solutions, identifying solutions and leading those solutions. So it's like we're building a movement of women environmental stewards. You know, people who will take on the responsibility to take care of the environment and also teach others to do it. So the environment is, you know, a very big section, and we cannot leave it out. So we're just playing our parts, you know, just like every other person has, you know, a cause they're advancing, which is also channeled or targeted towards, you know, making the world a better place for everyone, but of course women. I'm not saying first and I'm not saying last, but women, in the face of making sure that the world is better, we're considering that the lives of women must not just be better, it must be excellent. And so everything we're doing must, you know, be targeted towards all arriving. We're all going to arrive at a point, you know, but we must walk in a manner that we're supporting each other, actually, no matter the angle we're coming from. And I'm sure that in no time, if we spread the message constructively and progressively, we'll sure get there.
And then what will be your analysis, evaluation, and expectations of the development of feminism and in this country in relation specifically to the environment? Do you think a lot is happening? Are feminists, activists, and scholars, you know, at that stage of realization or understanding of the impact of the environment and all that the changes that we're seeing for the now and even the future?
The awareness is spreading. Things are happening. Maybe what has not happened just yet is to have like a coordinated voice where, you know, everyone knows that, okay, this is what women in Nigeria, that means whoever, because I can rightly say that it can't be just WISE. I know about WEP, Women Environmental Program. It can't be just WEP, it can't be just WISE that is doing something around the environment. There are many more, you know, maybe not fully, maybe their organization or their work is not centered on the environment. That probably they are doing things that are contributing to the center, you know, which is the environment. So what I think needs to happen is, you know, to have it all coordinated, structured, maybe at some point, maybe in the nearest time to come. I don't want to use future, in the nearest time to come. It could be tomorrow, it could be next tomorrow, but, you know, where we could all find ourselves, eventually find ourselves and, you know, just be one formidable voice for the environment, and where we will be reckoned with at every level. Because that is happening for me as an individual. That is happening for a lot of the women, you know, who are involved in our work. A lot of them didn't even know anything about environment. Like Hajia Binta, who has become a stove producer. That's one of the first 30 women we trained. Today, the Sustainable Fuelwood Management Project has bought over 2,000 stoves from her. This is a woman who was just unassuming, doing her business in Saminaka. This same woman championed the cause for the Sustainable Fuelwood Management Cook Stove Demonstration Center to be sited in Saminaka. So she has put her community on the map. So many more women can do this once they become informed and equipped. And that's where we're saying that the seemingly little thing that we're doing now, we encourage every of these women to go back to their communities and spread the word. So that once every woman becomes aware of how she can contribute, you know, she will see it as an opportunity, you know, to put herself at the center of being someone who is driving change in very impactful ways.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And in all, what would you say is your relationship with these other organizations that are working on the environment, or maybe feminist advocates and scholars in Nigeria?
Yeah. So WISE is a part of the National Council for Women's Societies in Kaduna State Chapter.
Okay.
We are part of the Global Peace Women because I am a member, and we are part of the Imagine work in Nigeria, which is supported by the Empowerment Institute.
Okay.
And then we belong to a couple of other organizations that are not maybe directly focused on women issues, but by being there, we're also part of the Just Energy Transition Coalition, championed by Environmental Rights Action. We're part of the Clean Cooking Alliance, like I told you. We're part of the Nigerian Alliance for Clean Cook Stoves. And then I, as an individual, am on the board of a couple of other organizations, and I have quite a number of other organizations that I'm mentoring. Okay. You know, and
then what about on the international scene?
Yeah, so on the international scene, I'm part of the Women Leaders for the World program, which is now How Women Lead.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have an alumni group, and then we're part of World Pulse, Women's Earth Alliance, quite a number.
The Global Peace Movement is international.
Yes, the Global Peace Movement is international.
Okay. Yeah. We are gradually getting to the
end
of
this Empowerment Institute.
Okay. Empowerment
So others I probably can share with you off camera.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. The other thing I wanted to ask you is, you know, we've heard a lot about feminism, global feminism. They talk about strands of it. What do you understand by African feminism, for instance? Is there any such thing as African feminism?
I've not come across that.
Okay, so you've not been involved in the conversation.
Yeah, no, I've not been involved in the conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe I should ask you, therefore, in conclusion, to tell me your expectations and aspirations on how you think the world should approach the global climate change and its impact on women. You know, you talked about women's health, the economy, but yeah, so how should the world approach, you know, this the climate change situation and its impact on women in terms of how we intend to address the challenges. I don't want to call them problems.
Yeah, so I would say a lot of us, we started our work probably out of passion, out of interest, and all that, and we're just doing our bit. There is need to, you know, have like targeted support, you know, for women, and especially those that have taken on the course, you know, to build the capacity of other women. There are certain maybe technical capabilities that may still be lacking, you know. So I think some of those kind of gaps, you know, can be filled by probably all these bigger organizations like United Nations. I know United Nations Women's Program is doing a lot generally, but I, for one, have not had any direct maybe contact or support. Even though we've just also been listed, our organization has received the, I think it's ECOSOC, Economic Council, what's the full meaning now? I think I'll confirm that and share with you off camera too. So we've received that, and it's because we were able to find information about it, you know. So some of all these things, a lot of women don't have access to those platforms where they can find the information that will, you know, further build our capacities, whether in terms of in technical terms, or, you know, all these things also cost money. Like I told you that for a very long time I self-funded my work, you know. So there should be more funding, you know, targeted towards interventions that, you know, support women, or interventions that primarily targeting women to address climate change.
And in Nigeria, for instance, do you see anything happening in that direction? You just talked about enormity of the damage of, you know, climate hazards on women's health, women's economy, the family. Do you see anything happening at the level of the state of Nigeria?
Well, the much that I am aware of was when the previous government, you know, decided to do an intervention, cookstove intervention, where there was a controversy around the 9 billion naira stoves, worth of stoves that, you know, was ordered. I guess much of it from outside the country, you know, and I'm aware that the current government has distributed the stoves now to state governments in Nigeria. And incidentally, I was invited by the Ministry of Environment in Kaduna when they did the flag off for the distribution. And then we were also marked to get some of the stoves, which we haven't collected just yet. But the reality about those stoves is that so much advancement has been made, you know, beyond those stoves. So they may serve their purpose, but not as what is in the market currently. And then I've been talking with an advocacy group. We're trying to work out a way we could bring some of the key stakeholders, especially the donors, who have been doing different things, because it's all, you know, pockets of things scattered all over the place. So we're trying to see how to bring all these people, donors, the civil society organization, policymakers together, you know, to just talk,
Okay.
Like a forum that we bring everybody to talk and share what they've been doing. Okay. And then see how everybody can work together, especially to get government buy-in. Because once some of these interventions and things are not supported by maybe policies, regulations, and legislations, at the end of the day, it's over time, it will just fizzle out.
Yeah.
But when there are policies, you know, saying, okay, probably we have passed that era where maybe a woman or her family have excuse to say we don't have an alternative. That's why we can continue to cut down our forests or trees indiscriminately. But now there are alternatives. But how can these alternatives become accessible?
Okay. Yeah, you are doing your own work in Kaduna, which and I know a couple of other states, and some things are happening in pockets of states and with the clean stove distribution. But do you think that conversation, you know, about, you know, clean energy, clean stove, sustainable environmental development is happening broadly in Nigeria?
No, it's not. I think the best that is happening, aside from what we are doing currently, is what Environmental Rights Action is doing, which is championing a coalition that they formed, you know, to support the concept of just energy transition. And to get communities or individuals, the people especially, and when I say people, every citizen, to own the process of that transition. You know, because a lot of times those voices are missing when such decisions are being taken. And because a lot of people don't even understand why we should actually go green and begin to become more responsible because of capitalism. You know, so all these things need to be deconstructed in ways that individuals, groups, bodies, you know, become well informed, become aware, and become equipped enough. Because the cost of some of these stoves are prohibitive for some families and all that. So, you know, different people can, even banks can have a buy-in, develop financing mechanisms, which also the government can come up with, whether you are subsidizing. And when I say subsidizing, it is not these people that will get the subsidy. It is the manufacturers that will get the subsidy so that they can continue to produce. So we don't want to say, okay, somebody just, it's like, okay, we're paying you for these soaps, but go to the manufacturer and collect it. In that way, you know, nobody is shortchanging anyone. It has to be a collective effort. Everybody must play their parts. Everybody must take responsibility. It's not time for exchanging blames or, you know, saying it's the government, is the women, is the, it's just has to be a collective effort. And if everybody actually comes on board and people become more informed, I think information is very powerful. If word continues to spread, you know, people will, because some of the women now, when they buy these stoves, they tell you that I used to spend more before. Now that's the savings I'm able to make. I can use it to buy clothes for myself. I can use it to, you know, invest in my business and all that. So when people know that this thing is not something that will bring about deprivation, but it's something that will, you know, better their lots, better everybody's lot, then I'm sure that nobody would. Even the when you're talking about the government, when we're talking about because ERA is also has championed a cause that a campaign that was called "Keep the Oil in the Ground." There's a current one that is life beyond oil. So if we also don't begin to prepare, you know, for a time where some of the resources that we are wasting or not managing properly, you know, if we don't prepare for that time where they probably will not be existent anymore, or they will not be useful. Because a country like Norway is targeting becoming a country that does not use fossil fuel driven cars.
Okay.
They're transiting to electric cars soon. And so I'm concerned if my country does not, you know, begin to take a look at those innovations that are happening.
Okay.
Because someday, even this oil that we're talking about that Nigeria is fully dependent on will become, I don't want to say useless, but probably nobody will be buying it. And then so we need to begin to develop alternatives that would help us combat climate change, and then help us also achieve climate justice, you know, where everyone is able to get the best out of what the environment has to offer us.
All right. And then maybe finally, do you think from your own assessment, the women, the communities you are working with are listening, are understanding, and are actually buying into this campaign?
They are listening in, they are buying in, and more communities continue to demand for our work, demand for our intervention. But of course, all this comes with, you know, extra financial cost and implication and all that. And that's why we're opening up our doors, you know, to more partners, probably others who have the resources. We have the knowledge, we have the idea, we have the access to the women, because to date our work has impacted over 7,000 women, you know, across Kaduna State. Okay. Not to talk, you know, now that's outside those we have been able to reach outside other communities. So every support we can get, you know, to sustain our work is very key, okay, you know, to us. Because we cannot afford to stop what we're doing, because we've seen the tremendous impact and transformation it's had on the communities of women that we've served thus far. So we can imagine, and that's why bringing our Women's Eco Learning Center is at the front burner of one of the things we want to achieve, because having that space, I think it will be first of its kind in the world, and it will be women driven. And I sure look forward to seeing that dream of the Eco Women's Learning Center become a reality. Okay. And this, I think, will also further motivate a lot of women, you know, to do more. Okay. Yeah, people will know that really women have something, a lot to offer in terms of solving a lot of these environmental challenges that has come to stay, because we've seen the work, the impact that the work the women are doing in their communities is having, and they're gaining attention. Mm-hmm. You know, we have our program is inclusive, so we even have the physically challenged, you know, people living with disability represented also. And we have a woman who I love so much, you know, she's in a wheelchair, but she's always driving the voices of women living with disability in our programs. And I can tell you that the last training we had under the UNDP program, we had a blind lady, we had a crippled, we had 2 deaf and dumb women, we had 4 physically challenged, and they are amongst those who are, you know, selling the improved cook stove products that were distributed to them, you know, in high numbers.
Okay. Well, and then now, finally, anything else that you want to reflect upon that I haven't said or asked you regarding your love and passion for the environment?
Now, what is actually crossing my mind is intergenerational transfer of knowledge.
Okay.
You know, targeting the next generation. We did a tree planting program 15 years ago as one of our first initiatives in one of the primary schools in Kaduna State. And just this year, we went back later to say, oh, we've never even visited this school to see whether these trees survived or not. And we got there, everywhere was green. We donated waste bins to them then because they didn't have in their classrooms, and they've maintained that culture of having waste bins. The school is neat now, the classroom. I can even, if I were to give an award, you know, to the neatest public school in Kaduna State, I probably would give it to that school because it's lush green now, and you know, people even come to hold their wedding events and things like that. The school is making money from it. So even when we went back and we said, do you want more trees? They showed us places where we can come and plant new trees. And we handed it over to the prefects in the school. That's the highest class grade in the school, and then they planted the trees, and we gave them the task of nurturing those plants until they leave, and they can come back some years later, you know, to say I planted this tree and all that. So we're looking at targeting the next generation of maybe from next year we probably will be working with teenagers, females, young females across communities. So the key word is intergenerational transfer of knowledge, where we are beginning to hand over, you know, the capabilities, you know, of protecting and managing our resources sustainably to the next generation.
But you do know that some young people are also already involved. What do you think about the fact that young people, look at the United States, where the young girl is like championing this cause for global climate change and you know, urging you know, the big powers to invest in environmental protection. What do you think? You know, are you excited that this is warming up?
I am excited because, interestingly, my niece, who wasn't too aware of the work I was doing, she lives with her mom in the UK. She reached out to me a couple of weeks ago. She's just 8.
Okay.
And her mom told me she wanted to speak to me. So I got on the WhatsApp call with her, and she said, Auntie, I want to apply to be on the eco committee in my school. And so I asked the mom to send me, you know, the documents. And she sent it to me. I looked at some of the questions because it was indicated on the documents that an adult could guide them, you know, to answer those questions. You know, so I put down my thoughts in the light of what I feel, you know, was good at her level. And then I decided to interact with her to have her feel about what she knows. And I was wowed by what she knows. And the last question on that application form is, if you were an animal, what animal would you be? I had eagle in mind, and interestingly, I had eagle or lion. A lion because a lion is courageous and can boldly spread the word, you know, and get people to take responsible actions for the environment. And then an eagle, because an eagle could soar high. An eagle is a strong bird. You need strength, vitality. You need to be resilient in, spreading the word, because change doesn't come that easy, so you must stand your ground, and if you believe in the cause, you must stand for it. And so I asked my niece, if you were an animal, what would you be? She said an eagle. Why an eagle? She said so she could fly around the world and see what people are doing to the environment. So we've just had another conversation, and I think they're supposed to address the assembly in the school. So she was actually selected as one of the eco committee members, and one of the things we jointly wrote down was that her auntie is a passionate environmental advocate, and she knows that she can continue to draw inspiration and be guided, by her auntie to champion the cause she believes in.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Ms. Olanike. It's been worth the while, and this interview is completed this day, November the 10th, 2010. We appreciate you, and we look forward to, working with you maybe in the future, in the coming days. You said you don't like to use the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we wish you well in your work.
Thank you so much, and I want to say to every woman, every young lady, including men, and young males who have an opportunity to watch this interview, just help us spread the word that it is our collective responsibility to make sure that our environment thrives and we get the best out of it. Thank you.